Hey, good afternoon. How's everybody?
Hey, Rick.
Good. Hey, Rick.
It would help if I had my speaker turned on. There we go. I think Dave said he was awesome. That's what was said, right?
Sure. I'll take it.
It's all a choice. So you might as well just pick awesome, right?
Mindset, right? You got the right mindset.
Indeed, indeed. All righty. So it is lovely to see you all. And I wanted to kind of see first and foremost if there are any topics that we want to be certain that we cover today, if there's any specific burning questions. We have a relatively small group, so we can make this as specific and or personal as you would like to make it. Hello, Anna. And kind of go from there. So while you guys are thinking of that, I just wanted to reiterate something I said this morning on the 9 o'clock Zoom, and hope everyone was paying attention to that, because I kind of can't get it out of my head, right? It's like that whole idea of you can think of your real estate sales business as something that is, whatever, small, just you. And then you can look at it from the perspective of, what would it take to have Goldman Sachs give me $100 million to go and do more of what I do? Right. So I just love the perspective it grants, right? Whether or not anybody on this call has any desire to have some huge real estate empire, right, is not the point. The point for me was, like, just when you think that you're thinking as big as you can possibly think, something comes along to help you think even bigger. And sometimes it makes your head hurt. At least sometimes it makes my head hurt. And then I go home and I think, okay, there's a reason your head is hurting, right? Because you need to turn that into action, some sort of action. If it's not $100 million Goldman Sachs action, well, what is it, right? It doesn't have to be what somebody else has achieved or what somebody else has set as a standard or a bar. You just kind of turn that into, well, what is that going to mean for me? And it's one of the things I love about being in business in this organization, is that, every time you turn a corner, there's somebody else to look at or to listen to that just kind of like blows the back of your head right open and has you start thinking bigger, thinking differently, right? Gary's definition of leadership, in case you've never heard him say it, is leadership is teaching people how to think so that they can have what they want when they want it. That's Gary's definition of leadership. I like to add something into that. Don't tell Gary, but teaching people how to think and behave, right? Because action has to come for you. You have to think it first, then action has to kick into place. So teaching people how to think and behave so that they can have what they want when they want it. Any hoodle. And this morning, if you missed it, was not recorded. Stuart on this call, he is halfway through. Stuart said, "Why aren't you recording?" And I said, because I'm going to talk a little bit about the competition and I don't want that recorded, right? I was giving factual information, and yet I think it's always a smart idea to keep one's mouth unrecorded when mentioning facts about companies that aren't necessarily your own. So with that, just as a kind of a starting point, where do you want to go today? Who's got successes or challenges that they want to put on the table? What do you want to make sure that you get from our time together? Again, with a small group, we can make this as specific to you and your successes and challenges as you'd like. Anybody? Yes, Dave.
I mean, coming off the call this morning, I sent Steve an email as well for a one-on-one, but can you tell a little more about how these expansion teams work? And as a new agent, is it recommended to try to get on with one of those, or to kind of take some time as a solo to learn the business, I guess? I love your opinion on that one, Rick.
It's a great question. And I'll start by just kind of defining what expansion actually is, right? So expansion is, I'll use Adam Hergenrother as the example I give. Adam is an agent in Colchester, Vermont. If you've ever been to Colchester, Vermont, it's about this big, right? Colchester, Vermont is not a very big place. And in conversation with his coach, Adam, I coached with Adam for a little while, a couple of years ago. And so I know a little bit about kind of the steps that he took, and kind of group coached with Adam. And he said to his coach, this may sound like crazy town, but I'm having a struggle meeting my goals looking around my little town of Colchester, Vermont. And so they worked together to kind of geographically enhance the territory that he was looking at. And so he went from Colchester to whatever the county is and started to really take over the county. And then again, ran into the same issue. Okay, like there's not enough business here for me to achieve my goals. So then he went and looked at the state, right? And of course, he doesn't live in Texas; he lives in Vermont. So the state wasn't enough to fulfill his goals either. And so the idea of expansion is create a hub team, a hub organization in your main locale, Colchester, Vermont, and then offer that to people outside of your territory as almost like a brand in a box, if you will, right? It's kind of like the franchise idea, where Adam said, okay, I'm really great at generating leads, and I have a great back office. I have people who handle the marketing, handle online stuff, handle lead generation, and the follow-up that needs to happen to those leads. So some inside sales associates that are handling that. I have administrative people. So package all that up and hire an agent in wherever Vermont, right, the other side of Vermont. They send me a referral every time for every piece of business they close. It's usually a 50-50 arrangement or so, right? Like being on a team. But what they get for that 50% of everything they close is the structure of Adam Hergenrother Realty. They get lead generation done in their locale on their behalf. They get lead management on the back end. They get marketing services. They get administrative help, right? So all they have to do is kind of convert the lead. So, some expansion teams actually have people who convert, and so now you're getting handed some appointments. Go on the appointment, sell the house, right? So it takes a level of the work of growing your own business away, because you're leveraging the main team. And because what we've learned over the course of the last 5 to 10 years is that you can do that across state lines, right? Cody Gibson, I think, is the largest expansionist right now. He's in 109 different locations across, tons of different states, all under that same brand of United Home Group. And Cody then doesn't have to limit his potential. These expansionists don't have to limit their potential by geographic borders, right? You're just looking for talent wherever it is and supporting that talent with your name and brand. Does that help explain what expansion actually is, Dave?
That's very helpful. Thank you. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so part of it is, you don't have to be licensed in every state that you've got a affiliate in as well, right? So it allows you to tap into profits all throughout the country without any need of a license in that sense.
Correct. Yeah. And what we've just done is, and I know, I am still learning all the pieces of this because it's literally brand new. Our new expansion network, that whole structure now allows for one KW broker in each state, so that we don't have to be worried about where people are in terms of market centers and different market center rules. Because the struggle we were having with expansion is that every market center is individually owned and operated. And so everybody wanted to look at that slightly differently. And so the way you get around that is you have one KW broker at the state level for expansion. And so people can affiliate with that broker, and then everyone just follows the KWRI rules of being on an expansion team. So lots of different opportunities there. The follow-up though answer to your follow-up question is, is that something that makes sense to look at?
Mhm.
I think the answer is it depends. I think that I'll tell you my personal opinion, and then I'll broaden it. My personal opinion is that just like I believe that you should leave home at some point at 18 or 19 years old and go and live on your own so that you understand what it means to wake up in the morning. And if you didn't go shopping the night before and the refrigerator was empty yesterday, it's still empty in the morning, right? And because there's stuff you learn when you live on your own. If your clothes are dirty, there's no one there to wash them. And if you don't wash them, you either have to wear dirty clothes, go out and buy new clothes, or not leave the house, right? And so some of those things that you learn by living on your own, I think the analogy in business is the same. When you're out on your own as a business owner, you learn things that you might not necessarily learn if you leapt immediately into a team environment. Now, that being said, so my personal opinion is, I think everybody should live by themselves, even for a little while, before they get married and move in and have somebody else around. From a business perspective, that doesn't mean that there aren't good opportunities for people to join organizations or join teams that might fast track some results. So it's kind of a you have to weigh the pros and cons of it, right? There's a cost to joining a team, and yet if one is not doing much on one's own, well, then that might be in a perfect example of, well, if I were part of an organization that either provided a bit for me or provided some. Let me say this before I continue. I think that the biggest misconception is that joining a team, whether it's an expansion team or a team inside the market center, solves all your issues, because now all I have to do is go out and sell houses. Well, if you're not selling houses on your own, I'm not sure what makes you think you go out and just sell houses just because somebody else is generating the lead, right? There are some people who are not great at generating the leads, and so if that part is leveraged, they can be effective and create some fast success. But most teams that I know, especially expansion teams, because remember, you're joining someone's team who lives in Portland, Oregon, or in Vermont, or or in Washington State, or wherever. When you do that, they're not there to assist per se. It's you meet with them once a week or whatnot via Zoom or a conference call. So I think it depends on you, and I think it depends on what you're looking for and how you're looking for it to show up. If that's kind of a long version answer to maybe a short question, but does that help?
It does help, and that's what I'm trying to decide right now. I mean, for me, it's, do I do a team? And you and I have talked about this. There's team and then there's partnership. Partnership is less official. Definitely, a win-win. I'm not a take kind of a guy. I'm a more of a give. But it's just the structure of it. That's what I'm trying to decide upon right now.
Got it. Yeah, and for me, I pushed in the direct. I found a partner when it was time for me to grow. I didn't go immediately to a team. I found a partner first, and then with that partner, started to grow a team underneath the two of us, right? So there are different ways to do that.
Yeah,
Say it again.
That's probably my mindset where I'm kind of leaning towards in that regard. But I just want to get your take on it.
Yeah. And so here's what I'll say about finding a partner. It is no different than finding the right person to be married to, because it's easy to say I do. It's easy to say I do. And usually when you say I do, if you say I do to the person who ends up not being the person forever, You say I do for what you believe are all the right reasons, right? And then later on, it doesn't. It shows up as maybe. So do your research is what I'm saying. When before Debbie and I got into business together, we talked about it for 6 months, and then we dated. We literally dated for 6 months. We lived as if we were partners, and gave ourselves 6 months, and then asked a whole bunch of questions. Okay, so is there anything that I do that drives you absolutely berserk? Is there anything that you think might want to make you jump in front of the downtown bus if we actually got into business together? What are the things that you've learned from me? What have I learned from you? What are our business cycles? Right? Are our cycles the same? Or are they different? Right? Is my business high when yours is low? Can we balance each other out? What are our behavioral styles? Right? I mean, with me and Debbie, she's like a DS and I'm a DC. So where I don't have a whole lot of diplomacy, her S kind of came in to help make sure that I didn't get myself in trouble. And then my kind of strong DC behavior kind of came in to make sure that that no one ever took advantage of us, that we got the things that we needed, right? So are you balancing each other out, strengths and weaknesses, all that kind of stuff? Really dive in and do your homework, because when you think you've done enough, you probably need to do another big batch of it, and then do it again, right? Because it's crazy important.
Thanks.
Sure thing. What else?
I would just, if you don't mind, I would like to add to that, because as some of you know, Fiona Porter and I are business partners, and it was a delicate decision to make. We decided to look into each other's DISC profiles, and as a result of that, because DISC has a lot of psychological, I would say, language to it, and it tells a great deal about one's personality. But we decided to become business partners as a result of the compatibility that was demonstrated by that DISC profile. I would suggest that you might want to consider doing that, because it's the worst thing you can do is to get into business with somebody you can't stand or doesn't act or react in the same fashion that you are. So if you're a disciplined person, you need somebody that has that similar kind of attitude. And Fiona and I are very much, into the seeking business solutions and doing those things, although at the same time we operate sort of independently, but we help each other a lot, and it has to do with understanding each other's personalities, which is, to me, extraordinarily important.
Yeah, agreed. Here's the other side of that too, which we should mention. I also think that before you get into business with somebody, you should each have credit checks done, and share them with each other, so that you can ask each other questions around that. You don't want to get into business with someone that you are perfectly compatible with and that you love to death, who's drowning in debt and has debt collectors calling constantly, right? That affects the business. It affects, frankly, maybe I'm a bit of a pessimist, but people in those kinds of scenarios, sometimes there comes like a trust issue, right? If someone is that desperate, so money is another conversation to have. Who has it? Who doesn't have it? What and how are you gonna make sure that that there's a level of compatibility with how money is spent, how money is saved? What are the expectations? There are some people who earn money and spend every penny of it. There are some people who earn money and spend as little as possible and save a whole bunch of it, right? All of that needs to be discussed when you're getting into business with somebody. It is probably not even a small understatement to say that Debbie and I know more about each other's personal finances than our own spouses do, because everything's just merged, right? Our business lives are so merged that it just spills over into our personal lives. Balance sheets, personal balance sheets always have to be provided for banking and whatnot, and so at some point, you have to be okay kind of stepping out of the shower naked and having that other person be in the bathroom and be like, okay, whatever, right? It's kind of the financial equivalent of that. What else? That was a fun topic.
Hey, Rick.
Jacqueline,
How are you? Can you go into like the difference between what would be partnership that you're talking about and team? Like what, how is it set up? How would you work together as a partnership and as opposed to a team then?
Yeah, so great question. So partnerships, I think, are a team by definition by definition in our world. I'm not talking about the state now, right? Because the state is going to start having an opinion about this come January 1st. But in our world, the definition of team is really a rainmaker or rainmakers, right? People who are kind of the head honchos of this organization, hiring underneath them. And I don't mean to say underneath. That's not what I mean. And yet structurally, right? So I want you to think about it structurally, right? Underneath structurally, like an org chart. People who are doing certain pieces of the business. There'll be administrative people. There might be team agents. There might be buyer's agents or listing agents, depending on how the team is structured. In a partnership, what you're really looking to do is find. It's kind of a co-rainmaker scenario, right? It's not one person's business that is being hired to. It's the merging of two equal partners, two compatible people, to form one business out of two persons' businesses. How do you structure that? You can structure it any way you'd like. What I find is that the best structure is a 50-50 structure, 50-50 in terms of the income, 50-50 in terms of the expenses, and you just work it that way. I don't think it works all that well if you start to divvy up money based on whose lead it is. Well, this person was in my database, so therefore I should get 70% and you only 30%. And I think it gets far too difficult to track. I think it creates resentments, and it's not really a partnership then, right? You're two people doing business together, but hanging on to the past of what was mine, right? It just like in a marriage, right? Once you say I do, like the I becomes we. Everything is now a we, right? You own stuff together. And so the idea of a partnership to me is a 50-50 arrangement, and you set roles and goals, who's doing what and how are we going to make that for me and Debbie, it was we were co-listing agents, and both of us worked with buyers in our first couple of years together before we hired anybody else to work with any other clients. We were co-listing agents, which meant we went to most of our listing appointments together. And we worked with buyers. How did we divvy it up? I don't even remember anymore. It was just whoever was available to take out the buyer, right? It wasn't like mine or yours, or this came from a listing from someone in my database. And in my scenario, I will tell you that I merged my business with Debbie's in God, how old am I? In 2002, I think we merged our businesses together. So I was in the business about 3 or 4 years. And Debbie was in the business 23 or 24 years, right? Debbie and I are 20 years apart. And when we started to tell people, they would say to me, I was young and aggressive and I was kind of going out and doing my own thing. And they would say to me, why do you need her? You're doing this just fine on your own. Why do you need to add her to the mix? And they would say to her, why on earth do you need him? The only reason he wants to merge with you is because he wants access to your database of 20 years. Why would you share all that stuff with him? And so there was a whole lot of negative chitter chatter around that merger. But what we knew is from a business perspective, if you analyzed our businesses, if you analyzed what we were good at, if you analyzed where we wanted to go, it was a home run. And we took two $12 million a year sales businesses, and our first year together turned it into a $33 million year. So, we increased our results by over 30%. Just by merging, 12 plus 12 should have been 24. It ended up being 33 that next year. And that in the very following year, we opened our first KW office. So there was synergy there. You got to find the right person, right? You got to find the right person. Jacqueline, did that help? Did I answer your question?
I guess so. In a partnership, it's you're working together for the business. In a team, there's a rainmaker and agents that work those leads, let's say, leads that are given to them by the team. Is that right?
Yeah. So the way I would make it simple is partnership is really a dual rainmaker scenario.
Okay.
Right. So it's just two rainmakers who fuse their businesses together. And then those dual rainmakers can then hire a team or just work as partners, either or.
So can I ask you, so for capping, how does that work for, let's say it's, a partnership, you have two rainmakers working together. Do they each have a cap?
So
Or is that a team or?
I believe the way our policies and guidelines reads today is that unrelated dual rainmakers, right? So if you and I decided to form a partnership, and I had my $12 million team business, and you had your $12 million business, and we decided to fuse them together like Debbie and I did all those years ago, I believe our current P&G says that unrelated dual rainmakers share a cap and a half.
A cap and a half, okay.
Now, if you get into business with somebody in the market center, already in the market center, there's a 12-month waiting period before that cap incentive kicks in. So for the first 12 months, you would each carry your own cap. And then after 12 months, on 12 months and a day, or 13, the 13th month, your caps would adjust to, you share a cap and a half. So it becomes like a 3/4 cap per person.
Right. Okay.
Does that help?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so the idea, Jacqueline, is, if you're hired to a team or you're hiring on a team, the same 12-month deal shows up if you're hiring from inside of the market center. If you're hiring from outside of the market center, there is no 12-month waiting period. But inside of the market center, there's a 12-month waiting period. And that's from a win-win perspective. That it creates an opportunity for the market center then to go and recruit additional talent to make up the company dollar that is ultimately be lost by having those cap incentives in place, right? But the point is, if you hire to your team, the cap incentive for team members is a half cap, because normally they're at 50-50, right? So it's only an incentive in that it looks like a lower cap, but if you're paying 50% of your commissions to your rainmaker, well, it still takes you the exact same amount of time to hit your cap at 50%. And if you were getting 100% of your stuff at a full cap. So it's only to even out the fairness of it all, so that everyone has to sell the same amount of real estate. And so the idea of partnership, the cap and a half split is the same idea, right? But no one's hiring to one of you is not hiring the other. You're just merging your businesses together. And so we wanted to provide that same kind of cap relief in scenarios like that. But instead of one person having a full and one person having a half, you split the cap in half, so it becomes a 3/4 for each of you.
Okay. And so a team, I'm sure that there is paperwork and whatever to fill out to become a team. Is there something like that for a partnership as well?
So yeah, in our world, the idea of any kind of business arrangement, you need some kind of a team agreement or partnership agreement that spells out a number of different things. It needs to spell out income. It needs to spell out expenses. It needs to spell out how lead generation works. It needs to spell out a dissolution agreement, like what happens if a year from now we look to get divorced, or 5 years from now we look to get divorced, right? You need to have all those pieces in an agreement. And if you're merging with somebody inside the market center, your 12 months the clock starts ticking, not when you decide to start working with that person, but from the day you hand your MCA that signed team or partnership agreement. That's when the 12 months starts ticking.
And is that the agreement? Is that something that we already have in place, or is that something, obviously it's going to be different for everybody? If you're, you can, I would imagine you can set it up how you'd like. Is that so? Do you have a boilerplate to start from, and then, you change what you want, or?
So we don't, for legal reasons. It's really, because you're independent contractors, it's really hard for us to hand you a fill in the blank, just fill this out and hand it back, from a liability and exposure perspective. However, what we typically do is we have examples, so here's what so-and-so has used, here's what so-and-so has used, and you can kind of take from those examples. And this way, it's not the market center handing you something and suggesting it. It's your colleagues kind of sharing with what they've done, and then
Right.
you can kind of piece your own together. They all do go through me so that I can review them to make sure that all of the pieces are in there.
Mhm.
I kicked one back just recently because there was no discussion about what happens if we decide that we hate each other, right? There was no exit conversation, no divorce paragraph. And as the guy who gets to sit with everybody and mediate through all of the yuck when people don't want to be in business together, sorry, you don't get to be a team without having real clarity up front around what happens if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and an exit strategy if it doesn't.
Yes, exactly
Right?
right. Exactly right. Yep. And so everyone's clear going in, if this doesn't work out, here's what I can expect. Because I can tell you the back end of that
Messy.
is not very much fun.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
You're welcome. To the tune, just so you all know what I mean, to the tune that the worst one I ever had to mitigate through took 2 years, 2 years from the time that the people split to the time that we finally had agreement on all the things we had to agree to. Everyone had attorneys, and there was a lawsuit involved. We ended up in court at least 1 day, maybe 2 days, I can't remember. It was a disaster. A disaster. Because here's what's real. When you're not making money, everyone's happy to smile and agree. All of a sudden, when you're making money, it changes. It changes. So get all the agreements done up front. Because if it works and then you decide to change your mind and the money changes, getting everybody's agreement on the tail end, just way more difficult. Selective amnesia kind of creeps in. Selective amnesia, yeah. Yep. And sadly, what the other thing that creeps in is sometimes entitlement, right? You take a stand because you don't want to be bullied and you think you're right, and what it really translates into sometimes is just an entitlement to, well, okay, why do you think that you're entitled to that, right? Didn't that get generated by the team? Why would you be entitled to that? Well, I worked so hard. It's not your team, right? So anyway, helpful? Okay. What else?
Rick,
Yes, Frank.
if you don't mind, can you go over how the splits work again with teams?
I can go over them in kind of generally. Every team can and
Right.
sometimes is different. Generally, in a partnership, my suggestion would be 50-50. You split everything 50-50, income and expenses. I also believe that, especially in a partnership, that salaries are a good way to go, right? Debbie and I put ourselves on salaries when we merged our businesses. And that way we knew exactly what we were taking home every month. It had nothing to do with what we closed, right? It had to do with the business paying its employees. We weren't officially employees, but we behaved that way. And so we just set up a salary number, and then we knew what we had to sell to make sure we could meet payroll, right? And the payroll was our own. So I encourage that. In a team scenario, if you have a rainmaker with team members, the whole concept of buyer's agents is kind of going out the window a little bit, right? It's really more about team agents, team members. So you need to now have an understanding as to, if you're the rainmaker, how are you going to pay? Is it a 50-50 split on the buy side? Is it a 40-60 split if your agents are taking listings when the team is still handling all of the marketing and the expenses of managing the listing? Are the agents on your team allowed to take their own listings, or do they all just go to the listing agent on the team, which is oftentimes the rainmaker themselves? On mine and Debbie's team, our agents got paid 50-50. They get paid something better for rentals. I can't remember what it was, 60-40 or 70-30, something like that. We got paid less on rentals. And then our agents were, because this is going back a couple of years, our agents were not allowed to list. All the listings went to, all the listing leads went to Debbie, and we paid them a 25% referral fee at closing if the lead came from them once the listing closed. Nowadays, I would do that way differently. I would just have a different split and allow the team members to list, because I think the whole concept of building a team is easier, more easily accomplished if in fact agents don't feel like they're in a scenario where they can't do something. It may be they have to do it a certain way, right? So if somebody's on my team, I have an expectation that they're going to have conversations with sellers a certain way. I have an expectation that everything's going to look the same, right? Because we're one organization. But that's kind of how the money works. Does that answer that, Frank?
Yes, but specifically with the split with the market center. So assuming the 50-50 with the team, does the agent pay the market center based on that 50% or based on the total before the split?
So the numbers for the market center don't change, right? So the team splits are taken first, right? So if I'm an agent on your team, Frank, right, and you and I have a 50-50 agreement on the buy side, and I sell a buyer, and the commission is $10,000, well, that $10,000 commission comes into the market center. The commission outline is broken down, Frank 50%, Rick 50%. And so 5 and 5 go in each of our columns. And then wherever we might happen to be in our cap year, the 5,000 then gets processed through on the KW side. So if say you're capped and I'm not, right, 5,000 goes through straight to the bottom line for you because you're capped. So it's a $5,000 check to you. However, on my side, I'm not capped on anything. So I have to pay the 6% royalty. I pay a 70-30 split to KW, and then whatever comes out the bottom is how I get paid. But the team split happens first.
Okay.
And then everybody individually goes through the KW numbers. Does that help?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Anything else on this topic or another? Boy, we talked a lot about teams today. That was an unexpected surprise. Yes, Dave.
In the theme of thinking big, I was wondering if you had any updates on what maybe Keller Williams as a, corporate entity impact. And some of the things I have in mind are, I've been networking and run across some different investor types who have hedge fund relationships, for example, which are buying up a lot, as you know, not just for investors in industrial, but even down to the residential level, which might be relevant to us. And then the other thing is, and I have to ask Jen Henry about this, months ago, right after Mega Camp, she said there was a mention of a sports and entertainment potential new evolution. I'm not sure if there's any more on that, Rick, you've heard, but that's interesting to me given my background, as well as I think it's a nice way to kind of cultivate luxury marketing when you're trying to go after luxury listings. So I was just curious on those things.
Yeah, so I do know that there is a sports and entertainment division. It is a brand new division. I don't know a whole lot more about it except that it exists. One of the things that I will make a note about is perhaps I will reach out to whoever the head of sports and entertainment at KWRI is in Austin and see if we can get them or someone in their division to kind of jump on a call with us. Maybe we can have them as a guest one Thursday morning on our Zoom call. That way we can get from the horse's mouth exactly what the program is, where you access it, who you talk to, because it's a great point. It's, you know, one of the negatives about this organization is that there are so many different things that there's so many different moving parts, and there's constantly new stuff. It's almost impossible to keep up with it. So I appreciate you asking that question. We'll bring somebody in or get information and deliver it. I don't know the answer to it, except that I know that it exists. We've heard a little bit about it. You know, Jason Abrams, that's the world he comes from, right? Jason Abrams at one time was one of the preeminent sports realtors in the country. He started his business and started with, I can't remember which professional sports team, and just quickly expanded throughout the country, had people who were kind of on his team. I think Jason was one of the original expansion agents without even realizing he was doing expansion, right? Because he had people in different cities, right? When somebody from the whatever, name sports teams, from the West Coast to the East Coast, right, had to move. And if you're located on the West Coast, well, you need somebody in New York to make sure that someone can find a house in Jersey or in New York or wherever they're going to live to play for the Giants.
Yep.
So, the sports and entertainment division, I think, comes from what Jason did so well. But I don't know more about it than that.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I mean, I have relationships in the sports and entertainment space that I wanted to kind of figure out a way to leverage in an official capacity. And so before I kind of started to make that outreach, I wanted to, you know, get my house in order, I guess, in that regard. And then just luxury listings in general, you know, just a network of luxury buyers, you know, whether they're ready to buy now or later. These are all the things as I try to attack New Canaan and some of the luxury market here where I live. I'm trying to prepare myself as best for that. And that's why that came to mind.
Yeah. And there's a ton of luxury stuff out there. Brady Sandall is the director of the luxury division. I would go on KW Connect and I think they still do. Is Christine on this call? She is. Christine, do you know, are they still doing the weekly or every other week luxury calls with Brady? You're muted, Chris.
Hi, Brady's fantastic. The call is typically at least 3 times a month on Fridays. And then once a month, there's usually a great mastermind that they do as well. You can certainly reach out to me. I can tell you all about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Christine's hot and heavy on that. And if you go to KW Connect and just search luxury mastermind or luxury calls, I'll try and get you some better info, but I think it's all on KW Connect. If you go and search that portal, you should be able to find all the recordings from the past and then plug in on Fridays. But they're also live on Facebook, on the luxury Facebook page. Love it. Yeah, there's definitely more access to Brady and luxury than there is sports and entertainment at this point. Right. So that's the easier of the two to really kind of fill your cup with.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then the other piece, you said, you know, hedge funds buying up stuff. You know, I know Gary was also working on something called Keller Offers. I'm not sure exactly where that is. You know, as most of you know, last month Zillow stopped buying properties in their Zillow Offers thing. I'm not sure if you saw what did to their stock price. I think it's down by like 50% or something like that. But the idea of some kind of an iBuyer program, Gary has been working on as well. He was testing it out in certain markets across the country. So I don't know if that's coming, or if everyone's kind of abandoning that now that Zillow has decided not to play in that space anymore. You know, the reality is there's so much foundational stuff to focus on, and then there's all this new. It can sometimes, again, personally, I will offer this personal opinion. It's sometimes easy to get caught up in all the new stuff and and then not focus on all the foundational stuff? I think the answer is you have to do both, right? Stay focused on foundationally building a rock solid listings and sales business. And then on top of that, build luxury. On top of that, build sports and entertainment. On top of that, build any of these other specialties. Because the foundation is all the same, regardless of where you want to go, what you want to specialize in. The foundation is all the same. If you don't know how to generate leads foundationally, well, you won't know how to generate leads for luxury or leads for sports and entertainment, right?
Yep.
I think that's the thing that people miss, right? And it kind of goes back to where we started, right? Oh, well, I can't generate any leads. I'll go join a team. Well, right, if you're on my team, part of your job is to generate leads. So you're not going to be on my team long if you can't generate leads, right? Because the whole idea is now there's 3 of us, 4 of us, 8 of us all generating leads at a really high level, right? Being on a team isn't it's, you know, your name isn't Oliver, right? Please, sir, may I have some more, right? Anyhow, what else? Nada? Zippo? Zilcho?
How was your vacation?
My vacation was spectacular. My vacation was spectacular. Thank you for asking. I will say that my vacation was spectacular, and making sure that my grandmother got to meet those babies was, even if I didn't get away for my little 6 days on my own, was well worth it, right? She was thrilled to be able to be there. So all good. You know, you put family first, then you go and spend a little time on your own, come back and spend some more time with family. It was the perfect kind of bookend to the actual relaxing vacation. Although for the most part, Steve and I don't really do relaxing vacations. Right? I'm not sure that I would call anything that we do relaxing, because I'm just not built that way. But certainly adventurous. Right? It was an adventurous vacation. So thank you for asking. And I'm excited. Well, I'm mostly excited because I got the first one under my belt. Because I will transparently, I will tell you, I was a little bit nervous. I was a little bit nervous about what it would be like. I'm not typically nervous about being out of the country anywhere. I know the world just seems different. And so I was a little bit nervous. Like, what is that? What does it look like? What does it feel like? It doesn't feel all that different. So as I said yesterday morning, if you are a traveler and you have hesitated, I would say to you, I put my foot in the pool, and it feels fine. Go, go, go. Be cautious, right? Be smart, but go. Because the world ain't getting any less weird. I don't know if you've noticed. It's only getting weirder. So one of the questions I have for you guys in our remaining minutes is, okay, so it's 11/23, right? November the 23rd. November the 23rd. I know that came out like a time. That wasn't what I meant. It's November the 23rd, right? You're here today. Some of you are in tomorrow. Some of you are half day in it tomorrow. Some of you are out tomorrow. We have Thanksgiving. What are you doing to make sure you come back on Monday and really making sure that the next 4 weeks, right? The Monday after Thanksgiving through the end of the year, what are you doing to make sure that you have a January and a February that are not, egg noodles and ketchup? Because you got to be doing stuff hot and heavy right now to be certain that you have closings lined up for what is typically the slowest part of the year. Don't wait until January to say, the new year's here. I better start figuring out how I'm going to get something closed in the next 3 weeks. No. You got to start doing that right now. Go ahead, Christine.
It's the perfect time to reach out to your database and say happy holidays. The entire month, I mean, it's just the perfect time and they love it. And in doing so just this week, I got 3 listing appointments.
There you go. Okay, I'm not sure anybody has to hear anything else, right?
Exactly.
Right. So literally just reaching out to your database to say, happy Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for you. one of the things there were 5 extra apple pies up in the Ridgefield Market Center today. And I thought, well, they certainly aren't coming home with me because God knows we're gonna have plenty of food. And the last thing I need is 5 apple pies in my refrigerator. So I walked them on down. I had labels made generically, like you guys had made personally, labels made generically. It just said, you know, thanks for all you do with gratitude. Happy Thanksgiving, your friends at Keller Williams Realty. I walked them down to the bank and I gave them to everybody at the bank. And they were like, oh my goodness, thank you. We'll make sure we put it in the break room and share it. I'm like, no, this is one for each of you. Like they were blown away. I mean, blown away. It's amazing how small gestures, right? So Steve's bringing up some extras when he comes here at 4 o'clock to have a meeting, and I'm going to drive over to the other bank that we use and give out another 7 or 8 pies at the bank, right? I like my bank people to think I'm special. So the idea of gratitude, right? It's not too late. It's not, as a matter of fact, it's just beginning. So reach out. 3 listing appointments from gratitude calls. I love that. Donna Gilbert.
Yeah, so yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Also, I'm grateful for you. And then you state some sort of reason, calling up all the people that you put into houses between this Thanksgiving and last Thanksgiving. Ask them how they're enjoying, you know, what are their plans for Thanksgiving in their new house. And also don't forget your vendors, the relationships that you have with your vendors. Call them and you know, thank them for doing such a great job and happy to be in business. It's a great time to call and or text people to say, you know, thinking about you, I'm grateful for you.
Yeah, and you know, thank you for mentioning text, Donna, because first and foremost, for those of you who have really large databases, it is sometimes difficult, right? Just being real, keeping it real. It's sometimes difficult to make 900 calls right around Thanksgiving. So do you have your database divided into your top 50 people, right? Who are the top 50 people in your database who you need to be certain that you are connecting with personally? Inside of that, who are the top 5 raving fans, right? Because 10% of that 50 is going to be your raving fans. Have you sent your raving fans something awesome yet this month? What kind of things do you do for your raving fans? I'm curious, people on the call that do anything for their raving fans. Do you treat them differently? What do you do? Yes, Donna.
So yeah, my raving fans, there are actually 20, sorry, my top tier people, there are 20 of them. And yeah, within that, the 5 top are the raving fans. I make sure that they get something special once a month. And it's usually some sort of a pop by or porching or something where I actually go to them. And then some sort of an event for the top 5. And the top 5, you've talked about this, Rick. In fact, I got this from you, I'm pretty sure, from Ignite, you know, the theater tickets or the whatever, one set that you start calling through, and whoever's the first one who could use it, they get it. But just the constant repetition of that, they know every month that they're going to hear from me in some way. I'm going to say thank you. And you know, here's the interesting thing. I thought about this the other day. I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much time. But one of my top raving fans, who has been a raving fan for like my entire career, we have never done real estate business together. Because, and I'll tell you, and so in the time that I've known him for almost 20 years now, he has not moved, sold, bought, or invested in property. And yet, anytime he hears about real estate, he calls me to give me that referral. So don't forget, you know, it isn't just past clients. It's anyone who thinks that you're just, you know, all of that in a bag of chips.
I love that. I love that. And you know what's funny, about 2 months ago or so, Donna texted me and said, hey, I have tickets to this thing on Saturday night and Neil and I can't go. Do you guys want to go? And we couldn't go. And
Right.
after I said no, I thought to myself, I wonder if I was like one of those raving fan people that she called just to offer me the tickets.
Yeah, you know, so transparency. I had called my raving fans, nobody could use them. Okay. And they were for like that evening, I think, and it was Ridgefield Playhouse.
Yeah.
So I was able to, I'm like, well, who's in the area that could use these on a last minute? Deep Brayton actually used them.
I know it.
Was
I
it
love
the
that.
comedian?
No, it was like a 60s or 70s review cover band sort of thing. I mean, we just double booked with something else, but yeah.
Yeah, it was your Big E weekend, I believe.
It was. See, you remember, it's my birthday weekend. Yeah.
I do. Yes,
We
indeed.
went to see Billy Idol instead.
Yes, yes. With the Rebel Yell, you were up in Massachusetts. Sadly, I think I remember your schedule better than my own. So, um, but that what the point Donna makes is, right? What are you doing with raving fans? Are you sending them out to dinner once a quarter, right? And it doesn't have to be a $400 dinner, right? What if you got them a gas card once a quarter, right? Or what if there was some show at some playhouse or some whatever? What if you got them movie tickets, right? And if you don't know what they like, here's my thought. If you don't know what they like, would they like to see Dune, or would they like to see, the new romantic comedy? If you don't know that, it's an opportunity for you to have a conversation. Hey, I was thinking about you the other day because I had these 2 extra tickets to Dune, and I thought, what should I call? And I realized that, so this is the phone call you're making. Absolutely, I'll call. I'm curious, is that a kind of movie you like? What kind of movies do you love, right? Just in case I ever come across some extra tickets for something, I know, who to call. Have that conversation. It's now more personal. And then you narrow things down to, oh, you know what? I have these romantic comedy people. So here's the new Sandra Bullock movie. I'm going to go and bing, bam, boom on these people, right? Theater tickets cost you, $30,
Right, exactly.
including popcorn. So it's simple.
Yeah. Here's another simple thing that someone shared with me, and now I've shared it a couple of times. If you get the Starbucks app on your phone, you can actually send a barcode to whomever you want, and they can just take their phone to Starbucks and you can buy them a cup of coffee.
I love that.
It's unbelievable.
That's awesome.
It's so,
Yeah, you could do that with Dunkin' Donuts as well.
I'm
People
sure,
love it.
and Christine, tell me if you get this. And then they get their cup of coffee or latte or whatever, and they send you a picture in the text.
Yes, exactly. No, it's great. Brilliant. People love it.
It's all relationship building, right? Like all of that is
Absolutely.
relationship building.
Yep.
It's so spectacular. The other thing about sending people to dinner, right? You can do things kind of simply. You don't have to know what they like. Send them an Uber Eats gift card. You can do that online, right? Now, I know the things that we were just talking about, each of them seems like it costs money, but guys, owning a business sometimes costs some money, right? You have to spend money to make money. We're not talking about this for 200 people. We're not even talking about this for 20 or 50 people. We're talking about this for 5 or 10 people that you're doing these extra things for, right? You're loving on those people who send you more business or who should be sending you more business. I think that's an important thing to add there, right? One of the people in my database became the president of the PTA for one of the middle schools in the town I lived in when my son went into middle school. Okay, jackpot, right? And she wasn't really one of my raving fans. She was in my database because I knew who she was. Oh man, I started loving on her and her husband more than I think they were a little creeped out at some point. They're like, okay, like, dude, really back off. Like, but the idea of adding them into that special group, not because they sent me so much business, because they didn't send me a lick of business. They weren't in my database because I had sold them anything. But that was somebody who had connections. And the second I heard that she had been elected and she was in my database, I'm like, okie dokie. Now we got to figure out a way to kind of move myself in there and start saying thank you before anything's even sent. Guys, the law of reciprocity is alive and well in the world of business. And what that means is if you just keep loving on people and you do for them, at some point they will feel an obligation to do back for you, right? It's just the way it works. You just can't expect it proactively, right? You can't wander into your database saying, well, everyone owes me the their stuff. "Oh, I'm hot, I'm cold, my scarf's on, my scarf's off, my God." You have to be proactive about it, right? And then over time, you build that and it comes back to you. Alice Farina, take us home.
Okay, so we're talking about gratitude. I had a couple of extra pies myself. And most of you know, I just moved. And so we have staff downstairs, a concierge front desk, and I gave them 2 pies. And they were yelling out the window to me, "Thank you so much. The pie's delicious." I don't expect anything out of it, other than just made me feel so good that they appreciated it. And, I have little stickers on it, so you never know.
Yeah, it's so spectacular. It besides the fact, guys, if there's nothing that makes you feel better than expressing gratitude to people, right? When I walked into the bank this morning, it wasn't for like the kudos. It wasn't really even for, need to stay on everybody's good side. It's thank you, right? The people at that bank take care of me, right? They do things for me that they don't do for other people. I know that for a fact. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you for making me feel special. And if you now feel special because of that, that's awesome. So Alice, don't move. If everyone looks at Alice, doesn't she look like, the Queen video for Bohemian Rhapsody where it's just their heads and they're singing? Because all we can see is your head and the background is dark.
Yeah,
So-
I trying to find the right background, but yeah, I noticed that myself. I thought it looked like my head was floating.
It does. You look like Bohemian Rhapsody Queen video. If Google that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, because
I
it's
do.
exactly what you look like. All right. Well, with that, guys, it's been a pleasure. I hope this has been helpful. Covered a lot of different ground and topics. I appreciate your time and talents as always. I will look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning as we send ourselves off to the Thanksgiving holiday, but we do have one more 9 a.m. Zoom, so be on there for 9 o'clock. I will see you then. Have a great one.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.